6.1, right triangle trigonometry. This is from Algebra 2 Trig, the definition you originally wrote. Trigonometry is the study or relationship between the angle sides of a triangle. It is widely used in physics, astronomy, architecture, engineering, and other disciplines. All the pieces of the triangle. This you've seen 50,000 times. In a right triangle, the one opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. If I'm talking about angle A, this is the leg adjacent to A. This is the leg opposite of A. Adjacent just means it's adjacent to, it's touching. Opposite means it's the opposite of the angle. These are the trig functions we learned in the past. Write them down so you have them, so you remember them. The sine of A, of angle A, is opposite over the hypotenuse. What's the abbreviation for sine? Sin. You guys are good at that. Next one, cosine of A is the adjacent side of A over the hypotenuse. The abbreviation for cosine is cos. SOHCAHTOA, that's what I was going to get to. Tangent of angle A is the opposite over the adjacent. Tan. The cosecant is the opposite of the sine. That's where you have to be careful about the signs of the negative first. What's the abbreviation for cosecant? Nope. Not SEC. CSC. Cosecant is CSC. Secant is the inverse of sine, or cosine. The abbreviation is SEC. No idea. Cotangent is the inverse of tangent, and the abbreviation is cot. All right, someone mentioned the inverse button. Give me an angle, or give me some sides. 7, 4, 8. And give me, actually, I'm not even going to do that. Give me an angle. 74. It doesn't matter. On your calculator, there's a couple things you have to be careful of. First thing, in mode. Right now, we're talking about degrees, not radians. So you have to go into your calculator right now, change your degree to radian. Or sorry, radian to degree. In this lesson, we're talking about degrees. If I hit the sine of 74, I get this decimal. One thing you notice, bless you, is that there is no cosine button. There's no cosecant button. Or sorry, there's no cosecant, there's no secant, and there's no cotangent buttons. There's none here. A lot of people want to go and hit second sine and have sine inverse 74. That does not give me CSC. The way to find the CSC, sine 74, inverse goes on the outside. It is the same thing of doing 1 over the sine of 74. Right next to sine. Sine, or inverse sine of x is not equal to the sine of x inverse. That is a big mistake. These yellow buttons are not cosecant, secant, and cotangent. To find cosecant, you either hit sine of 74, then do the inverse, or do 1 divided by sine of 74. Yeah, yep, same thing. If I want cosine of 74, I can either take, for the inverse one, 1 divided by the cosine of 74, or I can take the cosine of 74 and the inverse. Notice how they're the same. But if I did the inverse cosine of 74, it doesn't work. We'll get into that. I want you to find the sine, the cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent of this triangle. Now for these here, for sine of x, we're talking about x. How do you find sine? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite is 12, the hypotenuse is 13. 12 divided by 13. 0.921? 0.9. Don't hit sine of. We don't know what the sine of x is. See, we can go and find out what the angle is, but this is just the ratio. The cosine of x. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So it's 5 over 13. 0.385. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So 12 divided by 5 is 2.4. So, ka, toa. That's a way to remember the trigonometric functions. For the CSC, it is just the flip. 13 divided by 12. 1 something. 0.1083. I could have also taken 12 divided by 13 and the inverse of it. I only put a 3. Right. Inverse button just flips the numbers. For cosecant, it's going to be 13 divided by 5, 2.6. And the cotangent is 5 over 12, 0.417. You guys noticed the big mistake, is you actually try to hit sine of that. Yeah. This here I've already showed you, and explaining this part over here. It's just the inverse of each one. Okay, now we're going to find a missing side. I'm going to call this one x, this one y. All right, to find the missing sides, to find x, I have an angle. I have that side and this side. What's this compared to 45? That's the opposite. This is the opposite over adjacent is tangent. So the tangent of 45 is equal to opposite over adjacent. Multiply by 7.1. So 7.1, the tangent of 45 is what x is. So 7.1 tangent 45. 7.1. Yep, tangent of 45 is 1. So that size 7.1. You should have known that. Why?
Oh.
It's a 45, so that one has to be 45. Since 45, 45, it's an isosceles triangle. Since an isosceles triangle, 7.1, 7.1. There's two ways I can find this last side. What's the first way? I can do Pythagorean Theorem. And I could take, actually I can use, this is my adjacent, this is my hypotenuse. So I'm going to have adjacent, so it's cosine of 45 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. You can do it different way too, yeah. Right. If I made this as secant, it's going to be y over 7.1. It's easier to work with. 7.1 secant of 45 equals y. 7.1 cosine 45 inverse. 10.05. Or 04, sorry. Now, just to show you Pythagorean Theorem, square root of 7.1 squared plus 7.1 squared, and take the square root, you get the same answer. Either way would have given you the correct answer. One last problem. We want to find the missing sides and the missing angles. Yeah, we know this one's 90, so we need to find A, B, and C. Can't be 45. Why not? Sides aren't the same here. What's the best way to find C? If I know two of the sides, might as well use Pythagorean Theorem. Square root of 6.8 squared plus 3.8 squared. C is 7.79. All right, let's find angle A. Any of the functions will work. Pick one. Tangent. Tangent of A equals opposite over adjacent. So I have 6.8 divided by 3.8. When I have an angle missing, this is when you use the inverse tangent. So it's the inverse tangent of 6.8 over 3.8 is what A is. Second tangent, second negative. So I don't have to type everything again. So mine is, the angle A is 60.8 degrees. The last angle, have to do the inverse. If you're trying to find an angle, that's where you use that inverse at. That's why it's up there. This button will find me the ratio. This button up here will find me the angles. Two ways I can find angle B. What's the first way, and probably the easiest way? Well, 90 minus 60.8. So angle B has to be 29.2 degrees.
So you can find
Or sorry, not, yeah.
Adjacent over.
I could use, we could do that too. So opposite over adjacent, the inverse tangent of 3.8 divided by 6.8. Inverse tangent, 3.8 divided by 6.8. You still get the same number. And it doesn't just work for tangent. I could use any of the trig functions. I could use sine. I could use cosine if I wanted. You just have to make sure you type in the correct numbers. Any questions?